Conspiracy facts. Billionaire philanthropist Bill Gates recently pushed back against some of the conspiracy theories spreading throughout the Internet, accusing him of creating the coronavirus outbreak. And I quote, "It's a bad combination of pandemic and social media and people looking for a very simple explanation."
Yeah, the combination of having social media spreading things that are very titillating, to have this pandemic where people are uncertain and they prefer to have a simple explanation. It's meant that these things are really millions of messages a day, and people like myself and Dr. Fauci become the target. Often the clever thing they do, our foundation has given more money to buy vaccines to save lives than any group. So you just turn that around. You say, okay, we're making money and we're trying to kill people with vaccines or by inventing something. And at least it's true, we're associated with vaccines, but you actually have, sort of flipped the connection that we have there. I hope it doesn't create vaccine hesitancy. I hope, this whole story of innovation that's going on, that we do get the benefit of that. It's really the only good news I'm bringing you today is that the diagnostic, therapeutic, and vaccine innovation, these amazing private sector companies, without the coordination you would have liked, but they are doing it. And I do think people on the therapeutic side will be surprised. And, these are well-meaning people. This is a time where people are doing great work. And, so I hope the conspiracy stuff dies down. It's really, the numbers kind of blow my mind. And it's not just the fringe people that you would normally think of.
Well, I want to ask you, you mentioned side effects. The side effects for the Moderna vaccine sound concerning. We looked. After the second dose, at least 80% of participants experienced a systemic side effect, ranging from severe chills to fevers. So, are these vaccines safe?
Well, the FDA, not being pressured, will look hard at that. The FDA is the gold standard of regulators, and their current guidance on this, if they stick with that, is very, very appropriate. And the side effects were not super severe. That is, it didn't cause permanent health problems for the things there. Moderna did have to go with a fairly high dose, and so to get the antibodies. Some of the other vaccines are able to go with lower doses to get responses that are pretty high, including the J&J and the Pfizer. And so there's a lot of characteristics of these vaccines. It's great that we have multiple of them that are
Bill,
going out there. And yes, I think
you know the data
US
better than I do. But the data showed that everybody with a high dose had a side effect.
Yeah, but some of that is not dramatic, where it's just super painful. But yes, we need to make sure there's not severe side effects. The FDA, I think, will do a good job of that, despite the pressure.
How many doses of the vaccine will we need?
Well, none of the vaccines at this point appear like they'll work with a single dose. That was the hope at the very beginning. Maybe one of them, particularly in the second generation, won't surprise us. We hope just 2, although in the elderly, sometimes it takes more. And so making sure we have lots of elderly people in the trial will give us that data.
You've said some more than 7 billion doses. That's what we'll need.
Well, if what you're trying to do is block all the transmission, then you need to get 70–80% coverage on a global basis. So that it's unbelievably big numbers.
I mean, you're talking about a global vaccination program without a vaccine that hasn't been fully developed yet, and a massive scaling up of how to produce one or several vaccines. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think about this effort.
First and foremost, with no medical background, what makes Bill Gates an authority respecting global health issues? Is it the fact that he is a billionaire that qualifies him as the voice for all humanity? Bill Gates is a billionaire because he is a businessman that capitalized on a corporation, while partnering up with a corporate board member of IBM, Mary Gates, his mother, while his father worked on the board for Planned Parenthood, formed by Margaret Sanger, a racial eugenics advocate. Bill Gates continues to be the foremost pusher of vaccines and population control, under the veil of philanthropy, posing as a man highly interested in saving lives. Interestingly, by 2007, Bill Gates had given over $30 billion, almost exclusively to population control groups. The controlled corporate press wrote that the Gates were giving the money to help third-world children. Conversely, why would a man who donated an enormous amount of money to depopulation groups be interested in saving lives? It does not take a great deal of ingenuity to conclude that something does not add up. Do you think or believe that this is all a coincidence? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation funds the NIH, United Nations, WHO and the CDC. Hence, this voice for humanity, Bill Gates, claims normalcy will never return, until the entire world is vaccinated.
But you don't have a choice. People act like you have a choice. Normalcy only returns when we've largely vaccinated the entire global population.
Unsurprisingly, Dr. Anthony Fauci is on the Leadership Council for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who also is an advocate of normalcy will never return, until the entire world is vaccinated. Why?
How do we know if these vaccines are working?
We don't know if these vaccines will work. We don't know if they'll work to avoid deaths. We don't know if they'll work to avoid transmission. That's why we're working on so many first-generation vaccines. And you'd like it to be very safe in all the populations that you indicated for, no side effects. And then you'd like it to avoid the individual who gets the vaccine getting sick.
During the House Energy and Commerce Committee hearing, Dr. Fauci agrees that the COVID virus has mutated, then says that all RNA virus mutate, but that does not mean it changes. The new coronavirus is mutating, but very slowly. RNA viruses, like the flu and measles, are more prone to changes and mutations compared with DNA viruses, such as herpes, smallpox, and human papillomavirus, HPV. In the world of RNA viruses, change is the norm. Hence, frequent changes are expected with RNA viruses. Therefore, why would Dr. Fauci make such a statement? Although, Dr. Fauci has stated that it typically, on average, takes about 7 years to create a properly tested vaccine.
Dr. Fauci, what's the average time to develop a vaccine?
It depends on the vaccine and the situation in which you're doing it. If you're developing a vaccine in the middle of an outbreak,
I'm just asking, what's the average?
about 7 years.
All right. And what was the fastest we've ever done? What's the quickest the vaccine's been developed to date?
Well, it's probably, I think the Zika vaccine, which we developed, was about 1.5 years.
So and say there is a vaccine, what's the probability that a vaccine comes to market, actually?
There are more failures than there are successes.
About 6%.
Right.
What's the chance that even with a vaccine, this virus will be eradicated? And I'd look to flu for a little bit of an example, influenza. How effective is that vaccine?
The influenza vaccine is variable because the virus changes rapidly.
Much like this virus.
We don't know that yet.
Well, we already know it's mutated, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make any difference. All RNA viruses mutate. That doesn't mean they change.
Ever wonder why Bill Gates is pushing to have people vaccinated? Could it have something to do with the fact that he holds the patent for the coronavirus vaccine?
$10 billion in vaccinations over the last 2 decades, and you figured out the return on investment for that, and it kind of stunned me. Can you walk us through the math?
Over a 20-to-1 return. So if you just look at the economic benefits, that's a pretty strong number compared to anything else.
I think the numbers that you ran through were if you had put that money into an S&P 500 and reinvested the dividends, you'd come up with something like $17 billion, but you think it's $200 billion.
Here, yeah.
At this juncture, we can clearly see that there is much uncertainty surrounding the coronavirus, and that it's a money-driven agenda for Bill Gates. Are you willing to risk your family and loved ones by taking a vaccine that under normal conditions takes about 7 years to prepare? Unmistakably, the vaccine has side effects that is harmful, yet to keep his profit margins up, Bill Gates quickly diverts when interviewed, making it appear that the known side effects are minor, yet in reality people who take the injection have a different perspective. As mentioned earlier, Bill Gates hides behind the philanthropy veil as he shrewdly guides people to a false hope, as most businessmen cleverly master. Bill Gates has no medical background, and listening to him will only bring anguish and tears, while he continues to profit and others suffer. Thank you for watching. If you are a critical thinker and wish to learn more, you can download a copy of Ominous Expectation 3rd edition. Ominous Expectations is an explosive and informative publication, revealing the underlying Great Plan, Agenda 21, known as the New World Order. This agenda has been in motion since 1954, however, comprehensive research reveals that the United Nations Agenda 21 dates back to the 19th century BC, King Nimrod's reign. The evidence contained herein further gives the reader a snapshot of what to expect in the near future, as we head towards the ratified agenda that is going to change the world as we know it. The contents in this publication are not a conspiracy theory, but rather, the aligning of political, historical, science and biblical facts coming together, concerning the egregious enslavement that has taken place for centuries. The publication further exposes the fraudulent system that has looted society of its wealth, in exchange for a valueless, fiat, currency, that is essentially nothing more than debt. This 263-page ebook includes over 1,500 pages of free downloadable documents, and hours of supporting video links on our private server available for viewing or download. You can obtain a copy of Ominous Expectations for the low cost of $9.95 by visiting Kyprios.ca, or by emailing us at pkaa@kyprios.com. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and be sure to share.